Good morning. It's a bit like my yoga classes where everyone comes early so they can get the back rows, right? There's a lot of empty seats up front. Usually I'm in the back too. And I made an extra special effort to get here on time today. So I'm a bit like Denise in that I feel a little bit scattered. I've got a lot of thoughts and a lot of papers that might not even be in a specific order. And I found it really challenging this week to organize my thoughts around the theme, season of creation, and tying in kind of some of these connections around how do I feel about creation and especially the natural world, and how does that tie together with justice, both justice for the earth and justice for humans, which is what I really saw in this passage from Leviticus, was this idea that the land needs rest and so do people, right? The land needs justice and so do people, and we are not meant to actually hold on to land as property. So some thoughts that I might get into yet, but I wanted to start instead with talking about emotions rather than just all of this. And I find myself this morning and throughout the week reflecting on this, filled with two really deep emotions, the one being awe and one being lament. And I think we've seen that pairing already this morning, so I thank you to, Denise read to us Psalm 148, which is all about the earth, the world, all of creation praising God, and then spoke to us of some of the terrible things that we see right here in our city and all around us, right? And in that last song, right, it speaks about how great creation is and how we as humans have not done a great job at taking care of it, right? So there's this tension here between I have a love for creation and knowing that it is that love that I hope to pass on. It is that love that I know will actually inspire people to do good things for creation. And I wrestle with the opposition of seeing what's bad out there and feeling the need to also say, hey, this is happening, right? So it reminded me of this little plaque that I got from my grandma back when I was a kid. And it very much makes me think of my grandma. It had a nice little picture of a peach-colored rose. And you're just going to have to use your imaginations today. I don't have any pictures for you up here. So it had a peach-colored rose, and the phrase on it was, "All that I have seen teaches me to trust the Creator for all that I have not seen." And to be honest, I often looked at that as a kid, and I was skeptical. Said, no, actually, I've seen things that don't lead me to that trust, right? And when I think back to these two emotions, right, this feeling of awe paired with this feeling of lament, I can actually say the things that I have a hard time with, the things that don't teach me to trust, is the human, how humanity has leaned towards ideas around superiority and separation, right? So those are some of the kind of the two ways that I'm trying to organize myself here. And I do have some solutions, I don't know if solutions, but some thoughts for you on each of those. But let's get back to this feeling of awe. Just this week, I learned that koalas so their main part of their diet is eucalyptus leaves, right? Oh, you're nodding. Do you know this? And eucalyptus leaves are actually fairly toxic, right? And do you know how do they survive? They sleep 20 hours a day, right? And one of the things that's always fascinated me about nature, whether we're looking at plants or animals or landscapes, is how things adapt, how things fit together, right? I spend quite a bit of time up in the Alpine, in environments in the mountains above tree line where the weather is extreme, right? You can wake up in the snow and the wind, and it's cold, right? Just like Denise is complaining about this morning, even colder. And by afternoon, it's 30 degrees, and you're roasting, and there's no shelter, right? And there are plants and animals that are designed to not only survive, but thrive in these places, right? So, and I love learning about those things. So koalas don't really live here. So I have a closer to home example. It's still not quite Saskatoon, we hope, because we haven't seen grizzly bears around here lately, have we? So the grizzly bear, one of the things I love to know about the grizzly, actually this is bears in general, so we do have black bears not too far from here. Their digestive system has evolved kind of together with the seasons and with the environment, right? So in the springtime, right, when bears first wake up, they come out of their dens, they're awake from hibernation. What they will find for food is rodents, and they'll dig up from the ground, they'll dig up the roots and the really fibrous types of foods. And what's fiber really good for? It helps their digestion, their metabolism kick in, right? So it helps their systems wake up after the winter, which is what they need. And then as the season continues, their diet changes, right? So that come fall, right, late summer into the fall, all they're eating is berries, and they're just loving life because they can live in the berry patch and eat thousands of berries in a day. And if you've ever eaten a lot of fruit at once, you know that it helps to clear out your system a little bit, which means that the bear doesn't have a big load, a heavy load of food it's trying to digest through the winter, right? So their digestive system fits with how they live and with the environment around them and what's available to them. So these are things that humans have no part of, right? This is how the world has been created and has evolved in a really amazing way. One of the thoughts that I kept coming back to as I reflected on kind of just, the theme around creation was the idea that we could actually think of ourselves as equal to creation rather than above creation. And we see that superiority come out in a lot of different ways, right? We see humans trying to take control, trying to manage the earth, making use of the world and all that's in it for our own advantage, right? We see humans taking without always giving back. And we do it amongst ourselves too, right? Among the human species, right? We see racism, we see classism, we see lots of judgment made about different types of people. And that is especially real to me this week, I think following up on September 30th, right? Our day for honoring truth and reconciliation. Following yesterday, October 4th, National Day of Action for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, right? And then coming up on October 7th, which is what some people will say is the 2-year anniversary of the war between Palestine and Israel. And these are all examples when I think about the situation here in North America, in Turtle Island, so the situation between Indigenous people and colonizers, the situation between Palestinians and Israelis, we really see the truth, the need for that calling in Leviticus, right? What would it actually look like if we believed that we could not own the land? right? And that doesn't mean we abuse it and discard it, that actually means we share it. So one way of thinking, of addressing kind of this complexity of like, if one of the things that makes me sad in the world is that we get stuck in this period of superiority, how do we look for equality among all people and all beings, right? Can we imagine that we are equal to insects, that we are equal to dust particles? Because in fact, we were made from dust, right? That's what Genesis says. To think that we are equal to a bear, to a koala. That doesn't mean we don't need to think of ourselves as less than, we don't need to think of ourselves as more than, but that everything in this world was created by God, and it was all created good. I met an author by the name of Charles Eisenstein when I was volunteering at an eco-village on Vancouver Island. And he impressed me enough in like 10 to 15 minutes. I actually didn't chat with him for too long, but he impressed me enough that when I came back here to Saskatoon, I went to the library and found all his books. One of his books is called The More Beautiful World That Our Hearts Know Is Possible. Right? And one of the things that fascinates me about Charles Eisenstein is that he is a mathematician and a philosopher. And he actually does a really good job at putting those things together, I think. And he speaks a lot to this idea of separation, right? That we've created this mentality that humans are separate from each other and that we're separate from the world around us. He also wrote a book called Climate, A New Story, which I found really fascinating because it really weaves together science and a little bit of hopefulness. It actually, I think, is like the exact pairing of what I'm talking about today. I've left it feeling like, I'm both sad and I'm hopeful at the same time. So I think as we think about if I want to create more equality in the world, and I think one of the solutions or the antidotes to separation is creating more connection between people and also our non-human, or sometimes what we call our more than human neighbors. The antidote to that is connection. I'm going to invite you to join me on a bit of a mental journey. All right, so if I can find the right piece of paper, we'll get there. So this is an imagination kind of thing, and you might even choose to close your eyes if that helps you tap into your imagination. So your life begins at the Bow Glacier, which happens to be about 37 kilometers north of Lake Louise. Here you are very cold, you're quite pale, and you are a great reflector of light. You live in close company to many others like you, each of you small and unique, but together a great force to be reckoned with. As the sun shines and the weather warms, some of your friends and you break free from your community and follow the flow of gravity downwards. You move quickly and land hard in Bow Lake, where you notice you feel more fluid and malleable. You are ready to go wherever the landscape takes you. Your journey takes you into the Bow River, and you follow the flow, enjoying the feel of movement. You may lose track of your friends, but there are several more like you around, sometimes moving slowly, other times quickly, letting your body dance, shake, wave, and at times be calm. You notice that sometimes you're in close contact with many finely ground rock sediments, minerals like silt, clay, and glacial till that form something like a rock flour. With all these particles suspended around you, you notice you've taken on a very blue or turquoise appearance. The Bow River flows through the Alberta foothills and into Calgary, where you notice many people walking, jogging, and cycling along the banks. And your journey continues onto the prairies, where the Bow River meets the Oldman, and they converge to form the South Saskatchewan River. You then notice that those around you do not look as clean and clear as you move through the city and as you continue through great agricultural areas. As others run to join you from the fields, they bring with them pesticides and fertilizers, and you notice interesting discharge from city wastewater. Low concentrations of minerals, fecal coliform bacteria, pharmaceuticals, personal care products, and more. However, you and others like you are still in the majority and continuing to move and explore where the land takes you. You run into a wall and take some time to rest and relax in place for a while. But one day, the wall is lifted, and you're so excited to move that you rush from the place you've been contained. There are a few more stops and starts. Some places, like gathering places where you and your friends rest, but ultimately you find your way through the Nelson River and into Hudson Bay. Some of your friends decide to carry on, but when it begins to get a bit saltier, you decide to hang back. You seek out a bit more heat and start to feel a bit lighter. You decide to play with levitation, and soon you find yourself above the sea, looking down at the earth. For a while, you believe you are invisible, but then you start to notice some white fluff around your edges. As friends begin to crowd you, you all stop reflecting sunshine and band together to block it. Your body becomes darker, and you start to feel heavy. As the temperature cools, you no longer have the ability to hold on to your friends, and you fall away from your formation. You find yourself dropping down, down, down. And perhaps you will again end up at the Bow Glacier or in the Bow River. This time you may take a detour through a drinking water reservoir into someone's kitchen sink, shower, or water glass. Or maybe you'll end up on the other side of the earth, in a lake, a pond, a river, puddle, flash flood. Maybe you'll soak into the earth and follow the roots of a plant up into the leaves to catch the sun. There are many possibilities, right? When you are a water molecule, you travel all over the place, yeah? When I think about all the stories of the water molecules in this water bottle alone, I have a hard time imagining where it might all have been throughout all of history, throughout all of the world. And I think that water is a great connector to our stories, to our past, to each other. It's one of those things that is recognized in the world of environmentalism, that what you do in one place impacts many other people down the line. And water is essential for all life on Earth, so we need to do what we can to keep it clean. There's almost an exception to that. The kangaroo rat, by the way, is a species that is adapted to the desert environment so well that it actually never drinks water. It gets enough moisture from the seeds that it eats to stay alive, which is very little. When I work in the outdoors, I think water and food, eating from the plants around us, are one of the things that really help people connect to nature. And I could tell you a few different stories of times when we've hiked and hiked and hiked looking for water and we're super thirsty, and the shift that happens as soon as you find it. If you've gone all day or even 2 days with very little water and you're thirsty, right? I've had students that drop backpacks and run as soon as they saw water, and after they'd been walking so slowly, and everyone started dancing and singing, and it was an amazing shift just because of that water. And how can we not? Our bodies are 70% water, right? And the planet Earth is about 70% water, right? We think we are separate, but in fact, we are the same, right? We come from the earth. We are from dust. We are made from the earth, and we are aligned with the earth's cycles, even if we ignore it for generations. Whoops. Oh, good. This is what I wanted. When I read the phrase in Leviticus about not owning the earth, it immediately brought to mind the ideas around treaties as they were made here in Canada, right? And these different worldviews that came together at the signing of the treaties. One worldview of we want to take over this land versus a worldview that said we don't believe the land can be owned, but we want to work at sharing it with you. And of course, there's many more complexities than that. But I often find myself coming back to and really being inspired by Indigenous perspectives when it comes to land and how we are on the land. And I recently read a book called "We Survived the End of the World." And it's stories from a few different stories from different periods of time in North American history when Indigenous folks were in the process of being wiped out and how they responded to that. And so, unfortunately, the name of the author is on a different page, but you come talk to me later if you want to find out who this is by. One of the things that he writes is, the key to stopping the environmental apocalypse is not science, but love. For decades now, we have been staring at the scientific reports. They have not sufficiently inspired us to change our apocalyptic reality. But where science has failed, faith can succeed. We must help humanity rediscover their loving parent, the living world that sustains them. We must help them feel her love, just as we show them how that love can be returned. And it can begin by gathering people around two simple questions. 1, where were you in nature when you experienced a vision of such beauty that it took your breath away? And 2, how did that make you feel? If you can answer those 2 questions, you are on your way to meeting the mother you may never have known before. And the author says, I wonder if the ground is aware of what I am writing. I wonder if the earth has anything to say. I think language is important. And when we call the earth our mother, it changes the way we think about it. When we call the animals and the plants our relatives, it changes the way we think about them. And so perhaps this week you try noticing your language or the way you think about these things. How can we work towards connection and equality so that we no longer have to lament the fact that we live in a time of much separation and hierarchical systems? So I'll finish here with a little poem. One of the things that I sometimes ask my students to do when we are out hiking and camping is that I invite them to a poetry slam, which is their opportunity just to write anything, to say anything about nature, the environment. That's usually about as much guidance as I give them. I'm like, it can be long, it can be short. Your theme is environment, okay? And so I had a little bit of time once when I was sitting outside so that I was, well, and I figured if I asked them to do it, I should do it too. I found a more recent one, but it was very short because I didn't have a lot of time. Short and long, both valuable, both equal. But I'll finish up with this poem with the hope that there's a few pieces that catch your emotions even more than your thoughts. Environment, what surrounds me, the people and places around where I live and travel. These things, they affect me, they shape me, they make me who I am. Environment, nature, the place I like best. For everything I need to survive, I rely on the earth, my mother. I do not thrive in the concrete jungle, but in the world of trees, dirt, and fresh air. I'm outside, and I cannot ignore the rain, the heat, the cold. In this place, I know how I rely. I cannot take care of myself. Without the earth, I cannot eat, I cannot drink, I cannot breathe. And how do I treat that which gives me life? Nature, Mama Gaia. I so often forget how much she provides my nourishment in water, in sunshine. Like the mother who birthed me, I sometimes ignore her too much, think I've grown beyond her care. Environment is nourishment. Nature helps me grow. Here I am, outside, beautiful, strong, in touch, connected. What do I do to take care of my Earth Mother? Do I wait until she is on the doorstep of death before offering help, before I share my appreciation, my love? We are all connected, I with what surrounds me. As others hurt, so do I. And my mother, as she is hurt, I lose my grounding, my nourishment. Environment, it's all around me, makes me who I am, it's where I'm at. Nature rains on me, sun shines on me. I cannot do anything alone. Mama Gaia, Mother Earth, I am dependent. Let me take care and appreciate you, always, forever. So may we each see the divinity in every leaf outside, in every bug you see. May we know God's closeness today and throughout the week. May God's creative spirit move through us to see that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, belong to God, are of God, and deserve our love and care. Amen.